Hey guys, Mr. Dell here. We are looking at a word problem that deals with the concept of fractions, multiplying, dividing fractions, and application of that. So when we think about this situation, I'm just going to read it out loud here, and then we can go through and solve it. So this is Denise has 42 yards of fabric. How many ties can be made from the fabric if each tie uses 3/4 yard of fabric? So we have, and I like to see things in a diagram. If you think about this length being that fabric, there's 12 yards of fabric. So what I want to do is I need to take that fabric and cut it up, right? Because each tie used 3/4 yard, right? So if you were gonna split this into sections, you could split it into sections at 3/4 of a yard, right? So not a full yard, but 3/4 of a yard. And you can take it and do 3/4 of a yard and just keep cutting it up to be 3/4 of a yard until you've used all of the fabric, right? So that is the concept of what this problem is asking. 12 yards of fabric. How many ties can be made from the fabric if each tie uses 3/4 of a yard? So one tie is made from 3/4. So if I look at this concept of what I'm doing right now is I'm dividing that 12 by multiple 3/4, groups of 3/4. So I'm asking the question of how many groups, or I'll say groups of 3/4. We think of that 3/4 as a quantity. How many groups of 3/4 are in 12? That's another way of asking this question. And when we're talking about groups of something in another quantity, that's division. So what I'm asking is, what is 12 divided by 3/4? That would be the concept of what this word problem is getting us to do. Division of a fraction. Division of a fraction. So what's the next step? So how do we do this? So I'm going to take and show you when you divide by a fraction, right? One of the processes is to actually utilize the multiplying by a reciprocal. So when dividing by a fraction, what do we need to do? We need to multiply by the reciprocal. And in previous videos, I explained why that's the case. Why do we actually multiply? There's a whole reason of why we would, but we'll go right to that. Dividing by a fraction is multiplying by the reciprocal. So what does that look like? I'm going to take 12 and I'm going to put it as a fraction. So you can take any whole number, make it a fraction by putting it over 1. And I'm multiplying by, instead of 3/4, the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. So now I've got this multiplication problem of fractions. And when you're multiplying fractions, you can just multiply straight across and you get 48 over 3. And then 48 over 3 can simplify because 48 does divide. Remember, that means division, divides by 3, and you get 16. So right here, we have the fact that 12 divided by 3/4 is 16. So there are 16 possible ties within. So there's 16 possible ties. If I were to take and continue on dividing out this 12 yards by 3/4 of each piece, I'd have 16 pieces, 16 ties. So that's my final answer. We would say that there would be 16 ties. Okay, there you go.